Hi, my friends. Some words of Torah for Parshas Devarim. Reviewing the travels of the Jewish people in the desert has its advantages when you consider that, according to many commentaries, the events that occurred to the Jewish people for those 40 years in the desert are a foreshadowing to the entire history of the Jewish people for millennia. Our travels in the desert portend, through the various iterations and stories, so many of the events that have happened to the Jewish people for the past thousands of years. This idea is most apparent in the following section from our Parsha, where Moshe reviews with the people how they had to travel through the territory of Seir, the land southeast of Eretz Yisrael, where their cousins, the descendants of Esav, lived. The Torah describes how the nation had to tarry in Esav's territory. Vanefen vanisa hamidbara derech yamsuf. We traveled after the sin of the spies out into the desert. Vanosov et har seir yamim rabim. And we had to encircle or do a circuit around Mount Seir for a long time, for many, many days. And then finally Moshe says, Hashem said to me, Rav lachem sovet tahar hazeh, penu lachem tzafona. Okay, it's enough. Enough circuits around Mount Seir. I want you now to turn towards the north. Now, the reason why we were told to turn towards the north is because that was the direction we believe that we had to go in order to reach the borders of Eretz Yisrael. But our sages in the Medrash find a deeper significance to that Hebrew word for north, tzafona. They tell us that it has multiple meanings, tzafon, based on the fact that the word means something that you hide away for future use. Consider, for example, that at the Pesach Seder, one of the stages of the Seder is called safun. What does that mean? It means to hide something away and save it for later on, save it for dessert. We put that piece of matzah at the beginning of the Seder in a cloth or a bag, and we hide it away so that we can enjoy it later on. And therefore, when Moshe was telling the people, Penu lachem tzafona, time to turn towards the north, it means something even deeper. The Medrash gives three explanations as to what tzafona means, based on the understanding that our traveling around Mount Seir for a long time is an allusion to our diaspora existence with Esav, or Western civilization, as our host. This is the longest period of our exile. And that's why the Torah says that we had to travel around Mount Seir for many days. During that long and dark exile, there may be times when we will have incurred the jealousy of our brother Esav. And therefore the words Rav lachem sov, it's a lot of endurance, a lot of having to endure the jealousy and the ire of our brother Esav. So what's the response to that friction? You can mitigate that friction with one of three definitions of the word tzafona. Definition number one of tzafun is to hide. Hide yourselves. Make yourselves less conspicuous in the eyes of society. Don't flaunt your wealth. Don't be ostentatious in the way you live your lives. The Kli Yakar commentary observes that there is no nation that has a greater jealousy for the Jewish people than Esav. Esav's descendants still harbor the jealousy and resentment from the time when Yaakov usurped from Esav their father's blessings. To obviate that jealousy, it's important for Yaakov to not flaunt his blessings. The Kli Yakar in his commentary uses this interpretation as an opportunity to offer gentle words of rebuke to his fellow Jews in 16th and 17th century Europe. He perceived that they were overly brandishing their successes, and he says, Chevra, penu lachem tzafona. Maybe go a little bit more subdued. Maybe downplay a little bit. Definition number two, when you're in exile under the pressure of Esav, turn towards that which is hidden. That is, engage in Torah study, spiritual matters that are beneath the surface. Depart from the superficiality of Esav, who only sees and concerns himself with the external. The Avnei Nezer says that the animal which represents Esav according to our tradition is the chazir, is the pig. We know that the pig externally looks kosher because it has split hooves, even though internally, in its deeper recesses, it does not chew its cud and is not kosher. And that indicates that Esav's source of strength and his focus is the externalities of this world. We Jews are supposed to look and be part of not only the external world, but to focus on the deeper meaning of life. When we look at the world through the lens of our Torah, we appreciate that there is deeper meaning and connectivity to everything that transpires. Instead of watching social media and CNN for an analysis of what is going on in the world today, turn towards Tzafona. Try to find the deeper meaning that is informed by the more incisive lens of the Torah. Finally, definition number 3. When the heat from Esav becomes unbearable, turn towards that chapter in history which is currently obscured, which is Tzafun, but which we have faith will finally becoming the Messianic age. And that also is alluded to by the word Tzafona, because as King David states in the Psalms, Marav tuvcha asher tzafanta lire'echa. How great is that goodness that you have hidden away for those who revere you, which is an allusion to the future redemption. Also, tzafun. Penu lachem tzafona. No more apt words could be stated about our current condition. Turn yourselves towards isolation and seclusion in your homes. So let me first make an important public service plea to you, my friends. We are seeing an uptick in the rates of virus infection because people are getting weary of isolation. We are all social animals, and we require social interaction as part of our psychological nutrition, as part of our mental health. In Canada, people who have traveled abroad are supposed to quarantine for 2 weeks upon their return, as I am currently. But some, unfortunately, are not heeding those requirements and are inadvertently passing along the disease to others. So please, penu lachem tzafona, turn towards isolation for just a little bit more. We need to protect not only ourselves, but also our parents and grandparents and others who are more vulnerable to illness than we are. And remember the exhortation of the Kliyakar to his generation about not flaunting our wealth, which is just as relevant in the 21st century as it was in past generations. Secondly, penu lachem tzafona, take extra time during these lazy days of summer to do some introspection on the meaning of our lives and why we're in our current state. Take stock to see the deeper meaning behind all of this, not what the pundits are saying on the news, but rather how life itself has attained new meaning and new spiritual significance. Use our tradition, our Torah, which is the deepest of the deep, as your guide. And thirdly, penu lachem tzafona, face the future. Start thinking about the end game of all of this. Look at how civilization is starting to fray and unravel before our eyes, and the alarming rise of anti-Semitism. Look at the tzafun, the afikomen that you've been hiding away in your thoughts for all these years about making aliyah and moving on from this gullus. Many of us are doing just that right now and are making plans with nefesh b'nefesh, making the preparations that are necessary. When will it be our time to remove the afikomen from its bag and move on to the dessert of life? This Tisha B'Av, we will have the opportunity to experience all 3 tzafonas. We will be isolated in our homes, sitting on the floor as we watch Eicha and Kinos on video conference from the shul. We'll take some time to review Jewish history and see the deeper meaning of all that has transpired, both the good and the tragic. And we'll start thinking about what redemption really looks like based on our current experience and yearning to never have to spend another Tisha B'Av on the floor in the diaspora. And finally, to my American compatriots, let me offer one last interpretation of penu lachem tzafona, which I do with humility from the comfort of my home here in beautiful Canada. Penu lachem tzafona, look towards the north. Maybe it's worthwhile to look at the great white north, because sadly, The borders between our countries are not completely open for travel, other than for essential needs. Canada did that for a reason, because it sees the U.S. as having higher rates of infection than what we're seeing here. We are being very cautious about reopening here, and that caution is serving us currently very well, thank God. Continue wearing your masks, and let's not let our guard down just yet. The Jewish people have a glorious future. We are blessed with our own country, and it's our greatest comfort to know that when the time is right, there is a place which we can all call home, the state of Israel. Let's turn toward that North Star, that beacon of hope and the future dreams realized, and let us together in good health and in good spirits usher in the redemption speedily. May we see it b'mehera b'yameinu, amen. And I only have just a few more days of isolation, so I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Shabbat shalom, good Shabbos.